Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Setter Tales podcast. I'm Wade, and this is Thomas. And we're going to be talking about a different subject tonight that I don't think gets addressed a lot, but probably something that this time of year, when some trips are coming up, that we probably ought to think about a little bit more. You know what we're talking about tonight?
I thought we were talking about our new table.
Well, yeah, that's nice, isn't
It
it?
is nice.
You
It is
like that
nice.
table?
I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah,
I
we'll talk
do.
about the nice table, but also talk about um, the loss of guns. And I know that you had a friend that went through that. And, my story was that a couple years ago when we went to hunt in Ireland, the airline lost mine, my Benelli 12 gauge. Fortunately, they found it a couple days later, and I was able to use it over there in a hunt. But if they hadn't, I would have unfortunately been out. And so tonight we have Cole Cushman, who's going to come on. He owns and operates Guns and Trophy Insurance, and we're going to talk specifically about what we ought to all be thinking about when we talk about the thefts of guns, destruction of guns, but not only that, trophies and some other areas that because this time of year, guns are going to be transported all over the Midwest, and I'm sure other people are taking trips out of the country like I did, but mostly the guys we know are all headed to Kansas, headed to South Dakota. So let's
Hmm.
bring Cole in. Cole in. Cole, are you there tonight?
I'm here. How you guys
Hey,
doing?
we're doing
Good.
great. Thanks for coming on with us tonight. We talk about different things related to upland bird hunting, and one of the topics that we don't think about a lot is right up your alley, and that is taking care of those firearms that, for a lot of us, are legacy guns. They've been in the family perhaps, or anymore, just your routine shotgun is pretty dang expensive, and so what we do with them, hauling them back and forth and hauling them out of state, and the daily grind on them out there in the field is something that we need to think more about. And tell us about how you started and how you saw a need for insurance
Ab-
coverage on these types of things.
Absolutely. I come from a family of insurance agents. My dad started an agency in the early '80s. I started work for him right out of college, and some 6, 7 years ago, he walks in my office and says, I want to start a gun insurance program, but I want to do it all on the computer and make it all automated. And we're going to do it for a fraction of the cost and better coverage and better service. And I'm scratching my head a little bit. This is a guy that thinks a JPEG is a flash drive that you put in your computer, and he wants to start a
I
online
got you.
global insurance company for guns. So that was started about 6 years ago, and we're fortunate enough we took all the competitors and homeowners saw what they were doing, took their good stuff, cut the rate down to about a tenth to a quarter of the cost, and got our carrier Hanover Insurance Company to back it. And it's been up and running for 6 years, and it's rock and rolling right now. We renew close to 99% of our clients year over year, which is unheard of in my industry. And yeah, just really saw that there wasn't a good spot to insure our own guns affordable, and we decided to
Yeah.
create this program.
So, so my question to you would be: so as Thomas and I sat here tonight, typically, if our guns are insured at all, would it be like under a homeowner's policy, perhaps, if there is something in there, a clause in there someplace?
Yeah, unless you have a separate policy from someone like myself or a competitor of mine, there are a few of them. Most people do try to or think that it's covered on a homeowner's policy, or they think they can add it to a homeowner's policy, which they can. But every homeowner's carrier out there limits gun coverage specifically for the peril of theft, and it's typically a $2,500 limit. It's not per gun; it's per policy. So you got a lot of my upland bird guns are over $2,500 just themselves, not counting the whole collection. So the coverage is very limited under a homeowner's policy for firearms. And not to get into boring details, but you have the valuation that's going to be paid, is it still in production or not, and just the coverage is not adequate without a separate rider or policy for most
Yeah,
people.
I when I switch insurance companies, I've done it twice now, but when I said, "Hey, I'll get you all the serial numbers and make and models of my guns," he's like, "It's not worth it." He said,
No.
"I think the first company was $500, and then the other one was like maybe 2,500." I think my friend went through that as well. His house burnt down, gun cabinet hit the floor in the basement, and all the guns were warped and ruined, and he was out a lot of guns. He slowly bought them back. We all bought him a gun just because it was hunting season when it happened. So, but yeah, I'd had this discussion with people in the past that, hey, you better figure something out. And I haven't. I got a really good safe, but something burns, or
Yeah, but
you
when
can still
you're
take a safe out the door too.
when you're going cross country on a hunting trip like you do all
Yeah.
the time, and all of us do, and you got the shotgun in the back seat, or it's in the truck or in the hotel while you're out to dinner some evening or whatever. Let alone potential damage that happens in the field to a field gun. I mean, those are just the things that we I guess we assume the risks that that's the cost of doing business, and we don't really think past that.
Mhm.
But what would the process be then, Cole, for somebody like ourselves if we kind of said, well, what's the first step do we kind of get an idea of what our gun collection or might be valued at by doing some research?
We try to make it as easy as possible, and most people can have coverage in force in a few minutes by going to our website or giving us a call. We use a blanket unscheduled limit of insurance if a gun's under $10,000, meaning you don't provide description, no serial number, value, nothing to us. We just take a blanket aggregate limit, say $30,000, $40,000. That again is only good for any gun up to 10,000. But as you buy or sell, you don't have to tell us. And frankly, we don't want that information. I've got 3,000 clients in this program, and I don't need Big Brother knocking on in my office door for lists of everyone. So we don't require a lot of that information. On guns that are over 10,000, it's just a description of K80, Parkours, combo, serial number, A123, $15,000, and it's the same coverage and rate. Just we do need a schedule over 10,000.
Yeah.
To give you an idea, our base policy, you get $50,000 in coverage, $175 a year.
Wow.
And if you went to just about any homeowner's company for $50,000 in coverage, you're looking between $500 and $800.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to think about, because I have a lot of friends that shoot trap
Yep.
and are big in it. And I know my one friend, he's got like $15,000-$16,000 in an Italian trap gun. So
yeah, it's my dad started when he came to me. He'd gotten big into competitive trap shooting, and I mean, just about every guy out there, whether it's Prazzi, Kohler, Krieghoff, any of them. I mean, you're $10,000 just to start on those guns. And when you're shipping them, we cover transit. If you're shipping it to Krieghoff for an annual, we cover the shipping in both directions and while at the dealer. So our coverage is typically cheaper for the year than it is buying the shipping insurance both ways for one of those guns.
So what would be considered a deductible on a gun?
We have a $500 deductible per occurrence. So whether it's one gun involved or all guns, it's $500. So guys with a few $1,000s worth of guns, $500-$600 here a piece, it's not worth it to get our coverage, and they likely already have some on our homeowners. But we do have that $500, the lowest deductible we write, and that's we don't want to pick up $500 Glock stolen or chips and scratches. We're not looking at small claims like that. But we have two starting policies. Like I said, one's 20,000 in coverage. I think it's 130 a year, and then for 50,000, it's 175 a year, and then it goes up on larger collections. The rate drops. $600 a year for $250,000 in coverage, $320 for 100,000 in coverage, $500,000, $925 a year. So that there are some pretty nice rate drops as you get higher.
Yeah, and a guy like me that's a little younger that's just starting to collect.
I was going to say a guy like you has that $500,000 worth of guns. Maybe that
I wish.
more applies to you than
You know,
me, but
I still use that $200 20 gauge over and under, but I got some nicer ones in the case. So can we does the gun cabinet, so let's say my house burns down, does the gun cabinet get covered too? Can you cover that?
We don't cover the cabinet. We don't cover ammunition. We don't cover reloading equipment. Cover guns, optics, do class 3, suppressors, thermals, actually do binoculars, spotting scopes, extra clips, anything that can attach to a gun more or less. We do not do, like I said, ammo and the gun safe. We are primary coverage though, so we are first dollar if you don't have to report it to a homeowner's carrier. And to be honest, that's one reason to pull it off of a homeowner's policy is if you have a gun theft, your insurance company is not concerned with the value of the property, the gun itself. They're worried about the liability coverage that they have under their homeowner's policy. And you wouldn't believe how many times guys report a $1,500 Benelli stolen to get insurance to pay for it on their homeowners. Next thing you know, they're getting non-renewed at renewal because they're now a risk for having a firearm that got stolen and failure to defend the public and the liability nightmare that they could get drawn into.
Wow. Yeah, you don't ever think of that part. I always worried with my concealed weapons, he says somebody steals that gun and they shoot somebody with it, you're liable.
Yeah.
So,
well, at least to defend yourself.
Yeah.
The lawsuit anyways.
Yeah. So no, these are all good.
Now, is there a side of it too? Like, is there a liability part of it that you can add on to when you're hunting and the liability of somebody getting hurt
we are doing strictly property, same as jewelry. Okay. It's strictly property coverage. There are, half a dozen companies out there that write that concealed carry or liability coverage for firearms. And I don't know who's better than the next one, to be honest. I mean, they all have their plus and minuses and different costs associated with it, but that's a completely separate coverage. That is truly a liability coverage that would kick in for using.
Now let's talk about the trophy side. Now, how do you, what's that entail? I'm guessing a lot of guys go overseas and hunt and bring back the kind of trophies that are very valuable.
Yeah, well, even in North America too, we're the only company. I believe there's one other program out there. The Safari Club International has a similar program to ours. I believe our rates are a good bit less, but I think we're the only two now that write what we call trophy coverage or hunt replacement coverage, where we have set dollar amounts per species of just about any species in the world that you can hunt, whether it's a full body mount or a shoulder mount. And the values that we give are more in line with what you actually had into the hunt for airfare, guide rates, trophy rates, tags, the taxidermy cost itself, shipping to get the trophy back, where, the taxidermy cost might be 10%, 5% of what you have into that elk hunt or plains African hunt. But if your house burns or flood, wind, and you lose that trophy collection, it is truly an investment you're out. And it's memories. It's lifetime memories in a lot of cases. So our policy with those set dollar amounts are designed to make you whole where, if you want to go back and retake those hunts, you can. You don't have to. We don't have a requirement to. But we look at it as fine art because it for hunters it truly is. I mean, it's a lifetime of dedication, memories, hanging on a wall just as you would buy art. So, but we do it all in the same policy. It's the same rate structure, and it's the same insurance company. You don't have to take it, but it is guys that are big game hunters or hunters. It's a nice feature to have.
The lion Cecil keeps coming to mind on that insurance policy.
AIG pulled off of they had a similar program that their private client group, and as soon as that Cecil press came out, they stopped it.
Rest in peace, Cecil.
Now the other side too is if for some reason you had a big a trip like that planned and it falls through, or you get sick, or you can't go for for some reason, there's a way to insure those kinds of things also. Is that correct?
Not on our program. So they're kind of like the liability coverage. That's a separate travel insurance type,
Okay.
or and then also medevac. That's a bigger exposure. Guys are
Yes.
in the bush of Zimbabwe, and they need a medevac to get to a first world hospital. That there are coverages and specialties that do that. We do not. Again, ours is a property coverage. And on African stuff, we won't even cover it till it clears U.S. Customs. We're not looking to pick up someone's wounded Cape Buffalo that they're $12,000 in they can't find. That's not, we're not covering that. So it does have, the hide has to clear U.S. Customs before we cover it.
Okay.
But we cover it, from time and some taxidermists in the States, or it clears customs until it gets to your house. And it's an all risk policy. There's a couple exclusions on it. We're not going to cover insects and varmints. Dogs we're not going to cover through dog chews. My dog, my setter, who I had, lost her last year, but she chewed up my dad's zebra rug in his office, and we're not covering that.
Oh.
So my
Nice.
coon,
Nice.
I have a raccoon rug in my living room, and mom and dad's dog, when I was in high school, chewed the feet off of it. So you're probably not going to cover that, I would assume. As far as gun malfunctions, a gun breaks or anything while you're in the field, let's say it blows up.
Yep. We cover breakage. We do not cover scratching and marring. So we're not going to cover high grade English walnut stock gets a scratch on it. Go have it refinished. You can get it refinished anyways for under $500 typically, or right around it. You drop a gun, breakage, we cover it. Wife gets mad, throws it at you, breaks a nice scope on it, we cover it. Fall down the steps, fall off a horse, we cover it. We give a $5,000 give back for firing of a gun or blowing of a barrel. So if the barrel blows while firing, we give $5,000 for. Now that might not be enough in some cases, especially guys, $250,000 purdy, you're not going to have $5,000 isn't going to get you a new barrel on it. But there are some limitations we have to put on there so that it isn't a 125-year-old purdy that's rusted all the way through, and a guy's trying to insure for $250,000, and then all of a sudden barrel blows on it when the gun might not have been worth $7,000, $8,000, $5,000. So that's a limitation for while shooting or while firing. But other than that, breakage is covered anywhere in the world.
How about sinking to the bottom of the marsh?
We do cover boats if it's in a boat and the boat mysteriously finds a way to the bottom. We require police reports on any theft or disappearance of firearms. Actually, I think it's federal. You have to. The good thing about our clientele is, they're, from an insurance standpoint, some of the most trustworthy individuals that you can get. Hence we can charge as low as we do and still make money on it because the loss history is there. It takes a unique person to file try to commit insurance fraud and bring the cops in around firearms. Luckily we haven't had to run across that in 6-7 years, but not to say we haven't. Not to say there haven't been a claim or two that we thought might be fraudulent. But that's the nature of the game.
I had the reason I asked, I had an experience. I was hunting, got to pheasant hunt a spot that I normally wouldn't get to hunt. It was a bad day. It was New Year's Day, and all the guys that usually hunt it were probably hungover, and it was cold. Well, I wasn't told there was backwaters from a beaver den. And I walked like 2 miles. I got all the way to the end, and then I shot my limit. So I had that 2-mile walk back, and it was like below zero. Walk along, down through the ice I go. My feet never hit the bottom. That's how deep it was. And luckily, I got out. I used my gun, but when I fell in, I felt it going down, and I grabbed it by the barrel and got up, kind of got to shore, and and pulled myself up. And I was froze solid by the time I got back to the truck. The gun barrel was full of ice from the tip all the way to the action. And I had an hour drive home in my underwear. But in that case, if I would have dropped that gun in the bottom of that water,
We
it would
cover
have been
that.
covered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because by the time we would have got that fish back out, it would have been rusty and junk. But yeah,
Did
I used a
did you
little.
keep your birds, or they end up below the ice?
They were froze to my vest. I literally was froze solid. So I was walking like the Tin Man without any oil. And my cell phone was froze inside my pocket. And luckily I had OnStar. And my keys were stuck to my pocket.
So what's the moral of the story?
I don't know if there is one.
You better
Don't
be
let-
insured.
Better be insured, I guess.
You better
better
hunt
be-
with I think you better hunt with a buddy. I think.
Yeah,
You
and
better
it-
hunt with-
I'll be walking behind you, I think.
Well, my head, I was fine. Like, I almost walked on water. Well, the dog, of course, the dog jumped in and made it worse, made the hole bigger. She thought it was playtime. And then she realized it was cold and she climbed right out. So, but no, that was a bad experience that I had witnessed. And I called the guy, and like a day later when my phone thawed out, and I said, "Hey, you could have warned me about the water." And he goes, "Oh no." And I said, "Yeah, yes, oh no."
I thought you
He
said
goes, he goes, "I seen somebody driven in the driveway. He wasn't home." I said, "Well, good thing your wife wasn't home," because I said I was in my underwear. And yeah, my gun
You
was
sure
full.
you weren't practicing your figure eights out there?
What's that?
You sure you weren't practicing your figure eights?
No,
Getting ready for
it was pretty bad. It was very well
I
surprising.
thought you were going to say the first call you made was to your insurance man.
Yeah, I should have. Now I can.
Yeah.
Now I can, because I'm gonna probably pick this up.
That'd be awesome.
But
Yeah, you've probably got a few horror stories or good, good
Yeah.
good ending stories that could have been bad. But
yeah.
what's some of the crazy things you've run into in this business?
Sure. I mean, fortunately, our carrier behind us, Hanover, they've been phenomenal on claims, which, especially with guns and valuations, you get sentiment involved in it. They truly have been. We work with them on just about every claim. If ever there's an issue, we step in. But we've had anything from small, tiny claims to large fire losses. One that recently, a guy in New Mexico had his hunting cabin burned down in one of the wildfires, and he had $60,000 worth of his trophies in the cabin. And turns out the government's the one who started the fire. The state service started the fire and got out of control.
Oh,
But that's something where he had a trip planned. Actually, it's a few months later, anyways, already planned to go to Africa. He was able to take his son there. He was able to get a leopard in Cape Buffalo that he wasn't budgeting for on the hunt. It's nice when the coverage works out the way that it's intended for. And it's who would have known the Forest Service would have started that fire and would have burned down. But there's a lot of guys that have hunt cabins or their main house. We had a guy in Alabama or Georgia, fire marshal, retired, had just a lifetime of old antique World War I, II vintages, Vietnam, and we had a few $100,000 coverage limit on him, and had a house fire, and the fire department came to put out all the smokes, and the house was totaled. The guns were all in the basement and in a vault, more concrete walls. But as that water started, upstairs and then worked its way into the basement, you're dealing with a lot of toxins and water on a lot of old firearms that don't particularly love that stuff. And he had close to $700,000 collection. We had a $300,000 limit on him, and just a diminished value on those guns got to that $300,000. And he was able to keep all his guns. He was able to salvage them a good bit, but instead of 98% condition, might be 93% condition. But on a lot of these guns, that's a heck of a difference in the valuation on them. So it took a while to close that one just because the diminished value was involved. But they did a great job, and he was tickled with it afterwards.
And a lot of people I know that have a lot of guns, they're either tucked in the corner of the closet in a either just by themselves, or they're in a rack, right, like what you have behind you. So
Yep.
if there is a slight fire or something that's not too bad, if you didn't have you got it out right away, but there was a big enough fire where you didn't have them in a fire safe.
Oh, shoot, just seeing those pictures of those Kentucky tornadoes earlier this year, last year. I mean, it's debris getting you. I think they could have picked up a safe and thrown it a couple miles.
Yeah.
The way that storms came through, but we don't exclude wind, we don't exclude flood, we don't exclude earthquake, and it all can happen. I mean, I remember one of the wildfires out in California. My cousin lived in a neighborhood across the highway from some forests, and it jumped the highway, and out of a neighborhood, the only thing you see standing is his gun safe was the only thing standing in it. But there's a lot of people that can lose your valuables pretty easily.
Well, like I said, it came home to me when I was on that trip to Ireland, and it's kind of interesting because I mean it wasn't it was a Benelli, it was a brand new Benelli Legacy, so it's about an $1,800 shotgun, and I guess at the time that I was traveling over there, I kind of thought, well, I mean there is a chance that the gun might not get there, but let's hope that everything goes well, and yeah, it was pretty bad when I got to Dublin, and after a 7.5 hour flight, my bag made it. But I said, "Where's that case with the gun in it?" And after jumping through all that TSA stuff and
Oh yeah,
customs and all that, and then the gun didn't get there.
it doesn't matter how early it gets to the airport.
Well, and honestly, I thought that was gone. I mean, I didn't think I'd ever see it again, and I was kind of just, and that was 2 days before we were supposed to go on this pheasant hunt. And the airline kept saying, we're checking, and of course their main hub is in Chicago, which we had flown out of, and so I'm getting calls in Dublin, which is 5 o'clock in Chicago, but it's midnight where I'm at, and so they're calling me at the hotel at midnight, 1 in the morning, saying, well, we think we might know where your gun is. The airline had actually sent it to Denver instead of Dublin, I guess is what happened. But so the gun ended up in transit for 2 days. Finally, did get there in time for us to hunt with it. But it was at that time that it really pressed on me that, gosh, I mean, if the gun hadn't turned up, I would have just been out. I'd have just been, and I never really thought about it. I mean, in the terms that we're talking about tonight. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, and those gun cases, I swear that TSA or the employees there, it's a competition to see how far they can throw those cases and how much they can dent them. I mean, I'm amazed every time mine comes out of an airplane, just how many new bumps and dings and scratches or cracks are in those cases.
Well, yeah, and there was no question that the locks had been removed and had been replaced because they were not in the same position that I'd put them on, which I anticipated because somebody was going to look at it, and of course you have the official TSA locks on there that anybody that's got one of those keys can get into, and so who knows who has those keys and where they are at any given time, but definitely somebody had opened it up and taken a look inside at it, but yeah, I think in the future it'd be something that would be worth taking a look at. I think I'm going to look at really seriously about getting the guns insured because, gosh, over the years we've hauled them around, and you're thinking, man, I'm just lucky that that thing hadn't disappeared out of the back of the truck when we were in having supper or whatever. I mean, so for that kind of value and for what the premiums are, it just seems like it makes sense. So
My buddy
Go
lost
ahead.
2 guns at a truck stop. He had his camper and had his dog box on the back of the camper mounted, and he walked around to inspect it and thought, oh boy, something's going wrong. So back there. Their straps are coming loose or something. So he went into the truck to get the tools for something, and walked back, tightened a bolt that he'd seen that had come loose, and put an extra bolt on as a lock nut. Come back, and he had, luckily they were just Ruger 1022s, but he had two of them, and he was going on a hunting trip, and they were gone.
So he's behind
Somebody
the truck
walked
in there.
right up.
Wow.
When the doors were shut, he shut the doors, and they walked right in, looked, must have figured out they knew what he was doing, and opened the back doors, grabbed the two gun cases, and they were down the road.
Oh, and full transparency, that is our biggest limitation, is theft while in a vehicle, where we need forcible sign of entry for that theft to be covered while it's in a vehicle. So we need a broken window. We remove that in two cases. One, when it's being shipped. So if it's stolen from an unlocked FedEx truck, we cover that. And we remove it while you're at a shooting event. So if you're at a gun club or a competition shoot, we cover it from an unlocked vehicle there. There's this past year down at the Sport and Clay Nationals in San Antonio, 5 trucks, F-150s, got stolen from the grounds there. They cloned the keys on them, and we would cover that even if there's forcible entry or not, because they're at a shooting venue or shooting event. But if it's in your driveway and there's no forcible entry, we don't cover that theft. You could have it in the mudroom of your house, the front door wide open, and we would cover that, but not in the driveway if there's no forcible entry. So
your key to the
break the window.
Break the window.
Before you call Cole.
That window, the guy that got pieces of glass are up.
Well,
I think
but
that's
it's good
the
to know.
takeaway from this interview. Really, is how to commit fraud.
No, don't
Yeah,
commit fraud. No.
That's good to know. Though.
You got to have a little. You're supposed to hit that button, Will.
Yeah,
I thought I was.
But like your buddy situation.
I put my earmuffs on. Don't worry about it.
But like your
Power
buddy,
of the edit.
like your buddy situation, when you're right there with the vehicle and
Yeah.
it happens, that's kind of one of those that you don't think about locking it when you're doing something out of the back of the truck. But maybe
We
you
had
should. I don't know.
We had a guy that was shipping a $30,000 proxy to get some work done on it, and FedEx or UPS, whichever one it was, delivered it to the wrong building. They have no idea where they delivered it, who signed for it. They said that they got there, and try to work through that claim from FedEx on a $30,000 gun. You don't get too far, but we covered it for its full scheduled amount. So I mean, things do happen.
So then, do you guys try to go back on FedEx then, or the
It's up to him. So the insurance company, they can subrogate and try to go get their money back from it. Sometimes they deem it worth it, sometimes not. So I don't know if they did on my claim or not. And we typically, unless it's a shipping claim where they are clearly at fault and they can go back and get their money, then they'll try if it's large enough.
Wow.
But also a lot of these, insurance companies aren't in the gun buying and selling business, where it sometimes it's more effort than it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine having a gun that valuable to not show up somewhere. Whew. Wow. I felt bad about my $1,800 Benelli not showing up.
And you got that for free.
Well, we won't talk about it. What, free?
Well, you won a raffle.
I know,
probably spent $5. And
actually, it was $100.
Ooh.
Just don't get into the weeds on that deal. But and honestly, that's why I took it, because that's all I had in the gun. So I honestly thought, well, if it does disappear, I guess it's not like it's a family, legacy gun, or it's a gun that I purchased. I had actually won it in a raffle, and so anyway, that's why it went on the trip. As it turns out, though, now it's got a story and a history of its own, that it survived and made it there and back. So
and that's what makes our hunting and just the guns and our possessions. That's what gives us stories to talk about. And
we had
when we're not hunting,
we had 4 of the guys that I hunted with in Ireland actually came to Iowa this last fall, and that was the other question that I think had read, that we gave them guns to use. They didn't bring their own guns, so they're now here using some of our other firearms. What if that gets damaged while somebody else like that is using it for that purpose. Is that something that?
Yeah, we built in a coverage extension for, I think it's 25,000 sub limit for loaner guns. A lot of times I'll let a friend go test drive a gun prior to buying it, or a seller or buyer. So we do cover loaner guns, and if it's a friend that you just happen to you're hunting with them, and if something happens to it, absolutely we'll cover it. But there are a couple limitations, like I said, on the that 25,000 sub limit for for test driving a gun. That's the biggest one. We have on our website. We spend a good bit of money going through the policy itself and explaining through the FAQ sections. And we're also we love talking. We're talking to people like ourselves every single day in this program. We love talking about it, and we're happy at any point to jump on a phone call. In Dad's retirement, I put him out trap shooting across the U.S. and answering phone calls in this program, and it's best retirement that he could have. So
yeah, if you can talk guns with somebody all day, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of our Ireland guys, if they were going to bring their own guns, could they call you? And
No,
or is it only in the
you
US?
covered. You have to have a U.S. residence. We do it in every state except for Alaska and Hawaii. Hanover just doesn't have claim office there, and we can't write it in those two. If that's your only location is Alaska or Hawaii. But other than that, we can write every state. It's actually the same rates for every state too. But you can't do Canada citizens. They're covered anywhere in the world that you're traveling with them, but you have to live in the U.S.
So basically, a guy like me that maybe has $4,000 or $5,000 worth of guns, so that'd be a pretty reasonable annual premium. Then it sounds like if
to for $4,000 or $5,000 collection, you're likely going to be better going to your homeowner's carrier to see what they have, or if they can offer an endorsement on a little bit higher than it. Our lowest limit that we write is 20,000. You can have 10,000 in coverage, but you could have 10,000 in guns, but we're going to give you 20,000 in coverage.
Okay.
So for $130 a year. So it's.
Well, even if I don't make that $10,000 amount of guns, but for the coverage and the travel of the thought that the theft and everything else that goes into that, it would almost be worth, taking a policy from you guys to cover those other extraneous things, right?
The
homeowners probably won't
possibly. I mean, I typically find that under 10,000 in guns, you can usually price and even coverage wise get a better fit on a homeowner's. Now you still have the liability issue in the event of a claim, but homeowners carriers charge on average $1.25 per 100 in value. So on $10,000, they're going to be $125 a year. We're between 15 cents and 50 cents 100, but we have a minimum, so it doesn't really, unless you have 10,000 or over, you could usually do better on a homeowner's policy at that point.
It doesn't take much to get $10,000 worth of guns.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
No, and
not when they're a couple $1,000s a piece. Easy.
I mean, it's a couple $1,000 for just get out the door on just about anything now.
All right.
And now it's the big thing in our area now, Cole, is night hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Silencers, thermals,
yeah. The optics, optics, as well as I do, they get up, they outgrow the gun pretty quickly. You start throwing thermals, night vision.
I think my buddy's got like $3,000 just in his 22 for shooting gophers at the golf course, with the silencer and all that. So, you can get up there quite a way. So it's probably a good thing. And, there's might be some guns in the cabinet that you may have spent $300-$400 on 10 years ago, and now you can't go buy that gun for less than $1,000, $2,000.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be amazed the prices a lot of guns are getting now, especially on stuff that's not in production or older, and some of the collectible stuff where it's they're driving a premium on a lot of these guns.
So
they're hard to replace.
we my local Pheasants Forever chapter, every year we have a tribute gun. So we take a Henry Golden Boy per se, or a Silver Boy, but then we put a special one of a kind engraving on it. And we actually sold 2 of them this year. 2 guys fought over them, and we said we'll make another one. It's going to be different, but we'll make you another one if you each want to spend. They each spent $2,790 on a
Sure.
on a Henry Golden Boy. So if he does that, he says, "Well, I spent $2,700 on this thing."
Yeah, that's we cover. Yeah, we'll cover it for that. Absolutely. Heck,
Yeah,
we put on a Hunters for the Hungry banquet every year and do those Henry Golden Boy engraved too. And I can't tell you how much I've wasted, not wasted, but bought and raffle tickets, always wanting one, the same thing. Never got it, but absolutely. If you pay that for the gun, that's what we're going to do insure for, or if it goes up in value.
mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
You just don't go on whatever.com and say, "Oh, that guy." You know, I had problems in my home where something happened, like, well, it's depreciated, so we're only going to give you this much.
Well, the event of we, like I said, on the guns over 10,000, we schedule. So you're gonna assign a value to guns over 10. Under 10, it's the way the policy reads is fair market value, and what it turns out to be is Hanover, the adjusters work with us, work with you, see what condition the gun was. In theft, we don't know what condition the gun was in. If it's lost in shipping, we don't know if it was 50% or 95%. So there truly is a range on it. So we have found that the fair market valuations that we give are more in line with, on guns that are in production, it's cost to replace new. Guns out of production, you're typically going to get 97, 98, 99%, and your gun likely wasn't in that condition. Some are, but we take what's, we look at Blue Book values, Gun Broker, guns, a couple other auction houses, and try to see what stuff's going for, and then what the insurer's going to be happy with. And most claim, guns under 10,000, it's not worth it for the insurance company nickel and dime over smaller claims, or to consider small claims. So they've been truly great with working with us and our clients to give them the best valuations.
See, that was one of the questions I had was, I have just a Winchester Super X2. Back when they just started making them, they were an $1,100 gun. Well, now they don't make them. It's in great shape. I don't shoot it as much as I thought I would. If I lose that, they don't make it anymore. So now they have a Super X4 that's pushing, and probably a Super X5, I'm assuming, is coming out soon. That's going to be probably a $1,900 to $2,100 gun. That would be a replacement. So would that cover that replacement then for that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Or if you find, the same model that was, in 99% condition, and if yours was, you make the argument yours was, and then we would pay, the price on that.
Mm-hmm.
On scheduled guns, if we have it itemized, let's say 10,000, we actually give you another 25% on top of the scheduled limit. And that's kind of an inflation appreciation guard. The good thing about the unscheduled or blanket, though, is if you did buy a gun 15 years ago, it's a Tory that's model's not made right now, or if it's appreciated, you might think, oh, I bought it 15 years ago for 5,000. Well, shit, that might be 8,000, 9,000 now. And when we don't schedule it, that automatically covers that inflation on it. We actually had a claim where a guy was limited. He scheduled a gun at 5,000, and turns out it was about 8,000 to replace it. And we were able to get him pretty close to it because a few other guns were involved, and Hanover did a good job. But I don't schedule my guns unless they're over 10. I've got a Connecticut shotgun I schedule that's over 10, but anything else, blanket unscheduled is the way to go.
Awesome.
So were you surprised at how, I guess, the response to when you started the business? Were you really surprised at how quickly it started to grow? Or What are
Yeah, I
some
mean,
of
it
the
was
challenges that you met?
we had our not growing pains, but there's a couple of online, a lot of online forums. But when we started the program in advertising, you see, first gun owners naturally were skeptical and don't trust anyone. And there's posts that would start, don't trust the new guys in black, fraud. No one can be this good, and those sites, within a year, and now 6-7 years later, you can find 100, 200 reviews on them where there's not one bad one out there. It's people who've met us, been insured with us, had claims. But we have roughly 35% organic growth rate strictly by word of mouth. So 99% retention. So we truly, we treat our customers well, and in return, they stick with us. One, it's best price and coverage, but two, it's easy to deal with us, and they tell their friends, and that's really the best way for us to get around.
Yeah, word of mouth is usually the best.
Well, hopefully
advertising.
some of our listeners will check you out. And like I said, your website is pretty impressive, and it pretty much answers all of the questions that you have if you go through the various tabs. And it sounds like you built it that way on purpose so that most people could navigate through it and find out what they need to know without maybe making a phone call to you. But you don't mind those either, it sounds like. So
No, we like to talk to people. I mean, a lot of times it'll turn out it will be a couple minutes about their gun collection, and then 30 minutes about hunting trips are going on, or politics, whatever else we BS about. But it's best job in the world, man. Talking to greatest people all around this country every single day.
That's awesome. That makes a job. That is actually a job you can say, oh, all I do is talk hunting.
Yeah, insurance isn't. I mean, insurance typically isn't fun, but we found where we made insurance fun for us. I mean, it really is. It's a blessing.
So, when we wrap up our show, now that we know you had a setter, we'd like to just kind of let you finish it out with your favorite hunting story. It doesn't have to be about your setter. It doesn't have to be about shooting
that was a
an
female
upland bird.
You had a female setter, right?
I had a female setter. My mom never let us have a dog growing up, so as soon as I was in college and able to buy a dog, I got a setter, and better papers than me. But she was just a sweetheart.
What was her name?
Bama. I was listening to the band Alabama when I picked her up, and
Bama.
she seemed to like it. So, but she was hunting up until her last season. Just a sweetheart of a dog.
Now, typically, did you take any trips with her, like to the Dakotas or anything like that during her career?
I never got her out west. I would take her out half dozen, 8, 9 times here on the preserves in Virginia, which don't compare. I was, when I looked into it, to try to get a flight and a dog on it doesn't make sense to do to the dog. So it's a drive, and it's I didn't have 15, 16-hour drive in my early days of working this. So
why did you like setters? What's the best thing about a setter?
The point and tail, the tail feathers on her, it was majestic. I mean, no other dog have I seen where it looks so graceful. And just taking them out without ever shooting anything, just seeing them work it's a blessing, and loved every time I was able to do it. And it's, for them, it's a Disney World. I mean, you never seen a dog so happy as running out, chasing birds around.
Yeah, it's especially for me after the number of years I've hunted, it's more about the dogs for me, and watching them do what they do best, and then hunting with other dogs if we're hunting with Thomas and other people. But we certainly appreciate you coming on tonight, giving us your time. I think the information you had is really timely right now, and I found it very. I learned a lot tonight.
Yeah, I
about,
did.
Some
Learn
things
way more than I ever thought I
have been
would.
doing a long time ago, probably, and so hopefully your website is pretty direct. It's as I recall, it's
just gunandtrophy.com, and like I said, you can find just about any answer, or we're always email email, phone. We always get back within a day, if not within a couple hours.
Well, again, we appreciate it, and hopefully some of our listeners have found it rewarding to listen to the podcast, and they'll check into it. I know I'm going to check into it a little more, and I think Thomas has already said that he is. And if you get out to Iowa, and I know you're coming to Iowa here soon to a conference, you're going to be pretty. He's going to Des Moines, so he's going to be pretty close.
Yep, going about a month. I know. So should have been able to push it back another month or so. Would have.
Yes, yeah. Then you'd have been out here during the pheasant time. Then you could have chased the thunder chickens with us, maybe. But
you guys have a good year with them, or a good summer?
Yeah, it was a good year. According to the DNR, we're going to actually have a podcast here in a couple weeks with the study, but it varied in areas. But in our area where I live, it's up a lot. And in fact, I see 3 setter tails every morning I go to work because there's a brood of pheasants standing outside the kennel. So I see that in the sunlight every morning.
That's just wrong to do that to them.
It drives them nuts.
Drives them crazy.
And they're barking, and then I'm yelling to be quiet.
No, we're hoping that the early reports are that we may have a good hatch and good year, and the weather's been pretty decent, and so they're coming back. I mean, slowly but surely, we're starting to build some birds back, and that's good. That's good.
Yeah, it's
we need that.
The habitat's getting better, and the weather has certainly helped. You know, we had the rain at the right time. We didn't have enough rain, but we had the rain at the right time and got the bugs hatched, and it didn't flood, and so that's always a good thing for us.
So anyway, have a good trip to Iowa, and if you get a chance, get out in the old field and chase some pheasants. And in the meantime, we'll tell everybody we know to check out your website and find out more about getting those firearms insured.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Cole.
guys. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Appreciate it.